'Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert span.
Final boarding call for passengers Darian Brown, Maddie Genie, Peter Meisel, Chris Butler, Tayrina Tai, Jeeves Verma, Tristan Hayes, John Zenos, Dylan Horvat.
I actually am one of those people who likes airplane food because I guess being partially OC, I don't know. I like the little compartments, and I feel that every time I finish one of the compartments on the tray, I've achieved something.
Travel romance.
All relationships have an endpoint and a deadline. But romance, when on vacation, is a lot more potent because that deadline is like written on your return ticket. And that, I think, allows you to maybe like love more fearlessly, be more engaged because you don't have the fear of the uncertainty and the unknown.
So I had a foursome in Boston. I can't say that without sounding like I'm bragging, but I had a foursome in Boston. And I haven't even had a threesome before. This was a big moment for me, and it was a house party. And somehow I found myself in bed with three women. And so, you know, I made the most of the situation. I wouldn't say it was the best sexual experience I've ever had, because it was busy. It felt busy. Like, I don't know, there's something about me being the only male there that I took it upon myself just to make sure all the ladies were comfortable and enjoying themselves. So it felt like hosting a dinner party.
I don't really believe in romance when you're traveling. I mean, I know a lot of people have met people that way, but I think if there's any romance when you're on a trip, you automatically become a sex tourist. And it's funny because actual sex tourists are usually the people that don't like immigration, but they love sex touristing. You know, they like to keep it nice and separate. The Venn diagram is like this.
When someone really loves someone else, that's when you have romance. And, you know, if the other person loves that person back, that's what I call double romance. But, you know, when you're traveling, it can be quite poignant to get involved in romances because, you know, you're kissing, and then you're going to have to stop kissing at some point. Let's face it. You can try to have a long-distance relationship. Good luck with that. But, you know, enjoy it while you can.
I was in Paris just walking around years ago when I had severe depression and I was all flimsy and malnourished and just sitting on a bus stop with no shelter, and it was raining on me. And this French woman walked up and sat next to me. I had a little conversation with her, and she had this kind of cold sore on her lip. And so we ended up going out to dinner, and we went to a sushi place, and we were just walking around Paris and all these romantic scenes. Like, if you've been there, it's quite a cinematic city. And she ended up coming back to my room. We were quite drunk. But then I was just like, oh no, I need to, you know, sort of stay to my own side of the bed because of her cold sore. But then in the morning, like, she's like, well, why didn't you kiss me? You know? And I said, well, you've got a cold sore on your lip. And she goes, this is a mole. So then I kissed her mole.
I always try to see the funny side of romance in my life, or lack thereof rather. Because I always get really jealous when I have a friend or a brother or a cousin who always have these beautiful girlfriends, and they're like, oh, Dylan, wait till you meet her. She's so perfect and amazing and funny and nice and beautiful, and she'd be all those things. And then I was dating one girl, and you know, she was all right. She was okay. I didn't have the same passion they had. I found myself going, oh, wait till you meet her. She's so tolerable.
Someone tried to romance me once when I was on holiday. I did a day trip into Venice. Italian men are very forward, creepy, I would probably say. Insistent, definitely. You know, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. And Italian men like to take every shot they can.
Airports.
The airport, in essence, has this, I found out, has a magical power where what it does is it gives everyday people like you and me develop somewhat of a guilty conscience. because you could be fine and dandy one moment, but as soon as you walk through those airport doors, you're just like, oh, maybe I did pack heroin this morning.
I was going around with my girlfriend, who's now my wife, and her mum had bought me a new travel bag, right, to take on this trip. It was a purse. Let's be real, it was a man bag or a purse. And I'm not used to carrying bags. I'm not used to carrying these kinds of things around. So we're on the plane for 24 hours. We land in Rome. I get off the plane and we're waiting to collect our luggage, and I realize I don't have the purse. I don't have the bag. So I run back, try to get back through. I'm in Italy. I don't speak Italian. They don't speak very good English. And I get to the airport gate, and they're stopping me. I've left my bag. And they go, oh, okay, they're calling up. They go, we haven't got any bags. They're just, oh, wait. Some woman's left a handbag here. That's mine. It's mine. It's fine. And I've never been laughed at so hard by a security guard as he handed this bag over. Just keep in mind, this is in Italy. This is like the fashion capital of the world, where men carry all sorts of weird shit. And he's laughed at me as he's handed over this purse.
The worst airport I've ever been to is Guangzhou in China. I think it used to be called Canton. And basically in, airports, you expect them to be space where everything's kind of the same, Not Guangzhou. Their toilets were squat toilets. And it was just a mess. And it was quite, it's very dangerous, very slippery in there. And I remember there was this huge line, and this poor cleaner was trying to clean the other squat toilet while people next door were just squatting. And yeah, it was probably the worst stopover of my life, and I would do anything to avoid that airport again.
I was flying back to Sydney, and on the plane, just because it was one of those long flights, and I was by myself, there was a girl sitting 2 rows in front of me in another aisle, and I could only just see her, and I just, somewhere along the flight, I don't know, just because of my thoughts, I just let stuff go in my head, and I just fell in love with this girl on the plane. I couldn't even see the front of her face. It was only that part of her face. But I just, throughout the whole trip, I just fell in love with her, and to the point where I was like, I need to talk to this girl. I need to go up and say something. Oh man, in my head we had the most beautiful relationship I've ever had. And then where the plane stopped, we all got out, and I lost her. And I was heartbroken. This is real heartbreak. I don't know why. This has never happened to me before. I haven't just had a fantasy relationship. I don't do that usually. Yeah, and then in duty free, I saw another girl and I just fell in love with her, and I was a mess.
Hostels.
As late as 1990, we'd stay in a pension or something like that, and you share everything with everybody. But as you get older, people go, oh, I won't travel now, I'll travel when I get older. And that's great, except when you're young and you travel, it's just a different, you can go to the same place and it's a totally different experience. You're not in bed by 7:30 at night, or you don't have to have a nap at the exact same moment every day.
Apparently in hostels, they always have to drain the pipes because apparently the men in hostels use the bathrooms to relieve themselves sexually. So apparently there's a lot of fluids down there. So if you ever need some sperm, if you're doing IVF on the cheap, go to a hostel and, scoop. I believe they sell it by the bucket.
Every time I've gone and stayed in one, it's typical someone else is hooking up with someone on another bed. Because it's always like, married at first sight. I'm like accelerated. Accelerated budget version. No thanks.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared of hostels. There's sort of young people there having a bit of a sex time, doing drugs like weed, marijuana, and beer. It's a bit of a hostile vibe for me. Actually, I think that's where the word hostile comes from hostels. and from that movie Hostel.
In a hostel, like, you just have, like, running water, a toilet paper, like, the simple things. Yeah, people in hotels, they get Egyptian cotton sheets. Yeah, it beats $40 a night in a dingy hostel, sleeping in a bunk bed right above a man who just happens to be a French florist who's also a compulsive masturbator.
One time I was trying to hold in these farts so much, and I slipped asleep and I farted myself awake again. And it was very embarrassing, and I was hoping that no one else in the dorm heard it. But, you know, when you gotta go, I guess.
I'm in my 30s. I think if I'm in hostels now, again, I've messed up somewhere. So hotels for me, please.
Traveling with people.
Traveling with other people, no, don't do it. It's lame. You want to travel by yourself, you'll thank me later.
I think going on a trip with someone you're in a relationship with is a really expensive way to break up.
I can't travel with anyone. I feel like they would hold me back. Yeah, and I snore, so I would feel like I'm, burdening their sleep. So
there was a year in my life when my dad had to work in Europe, and he spent the year sort of working in various areas around Europe and took the family as well. So we got to go all around Europe and see these amazing places. Like we went to Bavaria for a brief period, and it's an absolutely stunning place. Venice, one of the most cultural places in the world. Venice. Went to Austria, briefly in England. Unfortunately, this happened to be 1998, and I was 2 years old at the time.
I think, like, sometimes traveling can be a kind of therapeutic experience. You know, the last couple of years I've had this girlfriend that I really loved, and I kind of thought we would maybe get married one day, and we were in a really happy relationship. But then, like, on our 2-year anniversary, she just sent me this text message saying, "Oh, I can't do this anymore." And I was like, "Oh, that's quite a surprise to me." And then she just didn't contact me she wouldn't reply to me for days. And we lived together and everything, so she didn't just come home at all. And it turned out she'd been seeing this other guy secretly and was with him at that time. The next day I had to get into a bus with 10 other comedians, and we drove for like 16 hours to go to Adelaide, where we were doing a comedy show. I was quite depressed, or heartbroken at least, and in pain. And we stopped over halfway and camped out, and we did a comedy show at Griffith. And it was quite a painful experience because, like, not only was my heart broken, but the audiences in Griffith, they didn't care for my style of humor, and I don't think they laughed one time. But later on that night, there was a karaoke night at that same RSL. So I had a lot of emotion to give, so I got a much better response during that. Or how I was just like singing Dido, "I will go down with this ship," just kind of crying, and they really respected that, you know.
My wife's friends like to ask her, aren't you worried about what John's going to get up to? You know, he's out there, he's basically living like a single man, right, out traveling away for work. They're kind of assuming that traveling for work is more glamorous than it is. I'm going to run into like a team of air hostesses that think the pilot's too hot for them or something like that. My wife's got a very different take on this, though, is that she just looks at me and looks at her friends and just goes, "No one's that stupid."
They made a lot of promises about this trip. One of them was that they were going to supply blankets, sleeping bag, pillows. And then I got back to the tent, and apparently none of that was accurate. And I had to share a sleeping bag with a 19-year-old Cambodian Chinese man who was like very soft skin, but it didn't really need it pressing up against me as I was like running through my head of what the different man was doing to my girlfriend at this time while they were together. I was sat in this sleeping bag with a 19-year-old Cambodian Chinese comedian who was quite handsy, if I'm honest. And yeah, I didn't really get much sleep that night.
Hitchhiking.
Hitchhiking used to be absolutely safe, absolutely something you would do. I used to get around hitchhiking when I graduated university and I had my degree and I was working at minimum wage in a chemist stacking Pampers. But I used to have to hitchhike home and it was never a problem. Now, unless you really desperately want to see Bangalore State Forest, you're going to be much more careful about where you hitch.
In New Zealand, it's like, you think it's such a nice wee country. We've got a few missing bodies from lovely Swedish tourists who thought they'd give it a crack.
I probably wouldn't hitchhike in anything less than a Ferrari maybe, or a Lambo. Yeah, I think if you're getting into a Corolla or any sort of van, you know, there's some expectations there, you know, for the murdering.
Never saw a hitchhiker in my life. So when I found out that hitchhikers was one of the topics for this interview, I was like, well, I've got nothing there. And my friend Alexander Cuff, who I drove here as well, said the same thing. And on the way, we passed 2 hitchhikers.
I was like, what? Today of all days we see, and I remember like we just saw one out of the corner of the eye. I was like, whoa, that was a hitchhiker.
First one was topless, and he wasn't anywhere near an exit or anything. He was just in the middle of the Princess Highway, and he was topless. And as we passed him, someone did stop, and it looked like they were ready to pick him up. It was a good-looking guy, so I'm thinking maybe, yeah, definitely pick that hitchhiker up.
A friend of mine who, she was in Bolivia and she was hitchhiking. It was at midnight in Bolivia for some reason. A short, stocky Spanish guy was riding by on a bike and asked if she wants a lift. So she hopped on. And then about a minute into it, she decided it was a bad idea. So she asked to hop off. And then he grabbed her arm and started pulling her into the bushes. And this is like in rural Bolivia. There's nothing around. Everything's pitch black. There's no street lights. There are no houses nearby. And then she started running. But at the time, she didn't really know a lot of Spanish. So all she said was, para mi amigo, para mi amigo. So she's pissed bold. Para mi amigo means stop my friend. So she's running and going, stop my friend, stop my friend. And this guy's chasing her going, friend? I'm not a friend.
Planes, trains, and automobiles.
I was a nice kid. I was not a bad. Yes, occasionally I'd run with scissors, or I wouldn't wait a half an hour after I finished eating to go swimming. But that was pretty much it. And I remember being in a car, and in those days they had three seaters in the front. And I remember I was sitting on the left side, and my first girlfriend actually, Janet, was sitting on my lap, and you know I wanted to be a bad boy, and she's facing towards the window, and I'm in the back seat, so I spit out the window. Which would, because that's what a bad boy was, it would have been far more impressive had the window been open. But since it wasn't, she laughed and laughed, and her jiggling actually felt good.
If you're going to get on a bus, get on a car, make it fun. Trick that bad boy out. You know, put up some tinsel. You can get posters quite cheaply and put on a little song on your phone. You know, forget about A. You're heading straight for B now, and that's okay.
I especially hate long train trips. Here's the reason being, unless I have my iPod, my laptop, or a good book to read, I'll be bored out of my mind, and then just be staring out the window for the next few hours, trying to find something to keep me entertained. Just for the next few hours, I'll be the guy just doing this. Track, 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 track. And my family will be irritated. They'll be sitting next to me going, Darian, focus on something else. All right, fine. Bogan, bogan, bogan.
I was in India and I was with my sister. We were travelling from New Delhi to Amritsar, which is a town in Punjab. And the train ride is about 13 hours. And because most of the other passengers we were travelling with were poor, we felt bad buying stuff to eat because we're Australian. We had Australian dollars, so we could buy literally everything. But every time we bought something to eat, people would just look at us. And I hate people looking at me when I'm eating. So it's quite an awkward trip for 13 hours, especially when you're hungry. So there were times that when the food guy came along, we were hungry, and I said, no, let's skip this one. We don't want to be those people who are well fed in an economy class carriage.
Foreign food.
Food's good travelling, if you're rich. If you're poor, it's not great.
The first time you see sushi or frog legs, your first instinct is to object. You know, this can't be happening. But, you know, give it a try. You know, you might like it. I remember when I first tried a panini, I'm like, what is this crazy Italian bread? But really, it's just a sandwich. I like sandwiches. You got to think of, foreign people probably also think that our normal food is pretty weird too.
If anyone says international food is weird, I think they should remember that Australia's national food is a fortified yeast bread, Vegemite. Like, it's absolutely, like, how do you describe it to me? It's like black tar, but like salty.
I think the worst food I've ever had is probably in Sweden. Believe it or not, they're not the best connoisseurs of food. So we were staying at a hotel. You would have thought that we would have been fed quite a nice hotel, but the options every night were either Rudolph's balls, probably as meatballs, or the literal interpretation of bubble and squeak was some kind of meat that was pounded, and when you actually cut into it, it had little like ear pockets in it. It was pretty bad.
So I was in Singapore in 1976, just for a holiday, and they had what was called the car park, where, believe it or not, they parked cars, but at night it turned into a whole bunch of stands where you could buy food or buy cooked food. And I went to one of the guys, because I'm very friendly, and I said to him, what kind of fruit is that? He goes, Stafu. I go, oh, Stafu. He goes, no, Stafu. I go, yeah, Stafu. No, Stafu. Turns out it was star fruit. And what should have been the clue was there's this piece of fruit shaped exactly like a star, but being not a great detective, never got it.
One of the things everyone knows about India is that you just can't go around drinking tap water because it has microbes in it, and you'll get jelly belly. There's this one time we were at a restaurant and we asked the restaurant if they had filtered water. And they said yes. That was great. So we after the meal, it was great. We met the chef, and he invited us back to the kitchen and to have a look at his impressive setup. It wasn't great, but he was really proud of it. So we went along with it. And then we saw the filtered water system, and it was a cloth tied around a tap. Yeah, needless to say, we all fell sick.
'Cause I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere. Been to Tullamore, Seymour, Lismore, Mooloolaba, Nambour, Roochdore, Kilmore, Marillaba, Birdsville, Emmaville, Wallaville, Connemara, Connemara, Strathron, Proserpine, Alladala, Darwin, Gingin, Nilliquin, Muckilla, Wallumbilla, Bougainville, Cumberland, I'm a killer. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the deserts bare, man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
Yeah, but listen here, mate, if you've been to...
Mori, Tari, Drillaby, Bamboo, Woomba, Gunnedah, Carringbar, Willamoo, Dalveen, Tambourine, Ningadeen, Jindabyne, Lithgow, Casino, Brigalow, Narromine, Megalong, Wyong, Tuggerwong, Wangarilla, Morilla, Ogathella, Brindabella, I'm the fella who's been everywhere, man.